Hi everybody, this is Frank with RC Racing TV and PolePositionRC.com, bringing you steps 21 and 22 of the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1. So what we've got here, we've got step 21. We've got front and rear chassis plates and some big hefty screws. And step 22 is the main chassis plate. Look how big that thing is. Starting to get a real sense of how big this Hummer H1 is going to be. Now we've stepped into the digital age. We've got the PDFs of the instruction here. So we're trying to get it to where we're not reflecting too much. But you can see that first of all, always go through the instructions and make sure that you know what's coming, so you know what tools you're going to need. So as we scroll up or flip through the instructions, make sure you note which chassis plate we're going to be working with. Obviously, we're going to be working with the rear chassis plate, and then just so you know what to expect. And then as we move into step 22 later in the video, we've got lots of screws and nuts, so we know what to be looking for. Right? Okay, so let's get started. Now we're just going to pull out the rear suspension piece that we're going to be attaching to that rear chassis plate. There it is, all ready to go. Once we're done with these steps, we're going to be starting on the front end of the drivetrain, which will be pretty interesting. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves yet. Let's concentrate on what we're looking at here first. So we've got 4 screws. Now you'll notice that these are bigger screws than what we've been dealing with so far, so we need to have a bigger screwdriver. So this is a PH1 screwdriver, so you make sure that it fits in there. The one I've been using previously has been a PH2, or 3.5 mil, as you can see there. This is a 5 mil. You can just barely see the markings there. So this will work, but you can see it's very easy for the screwdriver to slip out, and eventually, because the metal in this screwdriver is harder, I believe, than the metal in the screw, you'll eventually wear out the screw if you keep tightening it or it keeps slipping. So it's important to have the right size tool, or the right tool in general. If you've ever worked on cars or anything like that, you'll know that you need to have the right tool for the job. So we'll put that smaller one away, and we'll be working only with this one in this step at least. So let's put step 22 out of the way. And so we'll just get these in order the way it's shown. So you see that one side of these is countersunk, or it's got this like little cone shape in there. That's called countersinking. And this side does not. So this is going to be the bottom of the chassis, or I believe what they call the front. Sorry, this is the front, as they call it, and this will be the back. So let's get that out of the way, because we're not actually going to be using the front piece yet. So just so you're aware, I'm not sure which way. I think it's going to be facing this way. This will bolt onto the chassis plate this way, or maybe so this hump here that sticks out from the bottom, that's the differential, and then remember you have these 2 pieces here that sort of key into position. So there's only one way it can fit, basically. once you get it in place. And you see that that little tab fits in right there. You see, line that up properly, like that. See? Okay. And now we're going to get the countersinking screws. And I'm going to put these in place. And we're going to do these again in the star pattern. Now, like the instructions say, they're not going to be able to go in all the way because of the these are not countersunk, or the plate is not countersunk in this in these locations. So don't try and tighten them completely all the way down. Once you feel it touching the metal chassis plate, oops, you're done. Okay. So you see how they stick out quite a lot from the bottom of the chassis plate. So that's step 21 done. There's your front chassis plate. And now we're going to move on to step 22. That was quite quick and simple. So we'll just move these out of the way. Get the scissors back. And cut open this quite large bag, which, again, if you remember from my earlier steps, if you save these bags, these are very handy to keep all the spare bits in. So here's all our hardware. So this is lots and lots of machine screws and serrated nuts, as you can see there. So we're just going to have a quick look and see what we're meant to be doing here. So we're going to take the chassis plate out, the main chassis plate. And these holes look like they will line up there. So this is describing the nuts, how everything fits into place, and it looks like we're going to be attaching the front chassis plate and the rear chassis plate. And we're going to need some thread locking compound. And the screws for that chassis brace, which we've had, it's been waiting a little while to be used. This here, so that is going to attach about there. Okay. All right, so we've got the blue thread lock that we used in, I believe, in some previous steps. It's a red bottle, but make sure you get the blue stuff, not the red stuff. It's already gooping out a bit. Set it there so it doesn't spill anywhere. And so the first thing we're going to do when we're looking at this here is we're going to line up the holes in the chassis plates. these lined up properly. Probably easier from this side. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get everything lined up properly, starting with the rear chassis plate. And you'll notice that we've got the all the screws in place. Now, I think it looks like we're meant to put all the screws in now. So we've got 6 screws in total. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be installing is the front chassis plate. As you can see here, to the front of the chassis. Okay, so putting the middle screw into the hole first. You see how all those screw holes line up. Now normally, if your thread lock bottle cooperated, you wouldn't have all this mess, basically. So what I'm going to do is get just a flathead screwdriver, and this is not the ideal way to do it, but it gets the just need a small drop of it, like so. And then you get the wide end, if you can see that, the wide end, this side, the left side of the screw, where it's got those serrated sort of circular marks. I'm just going to have a look for the little wrench that came with the kit. Thought I had it handy. Yes, here we are, 5.5. And we're just going to tighten that screw down while making sure that the holes are still lined up. Like that. And then, so once that first hole has got the nut and screw in there, we're just going to do the other 4 screws, ignoring this one for now, but these 4, just put the other 4 in there. Trying to make sure. Now the instructions say that you can use masking tape to hold the screws in place, but if you don't try and do all 4 at the same time like I just did, you can just do 2 at a time. just make sure I get that middle one also. Just make sure it's, yeah, it's nice and tight. Okay, and then the final two. Now the thread locking compound is you can get it in 2 or 3 different grades. Blue is the normal sort of strength. It allows you to remove the screws when you need to, or in this case the nuts. Red is not recommended for RC use generally, unless you're doing some serious engine work or something like that. And I believe there's green as well, which is generally not really used in RC. So if you do need to get some thread locking stuff, make sure you get the blue. Okay, and then once we've got those 5 screws in place, I'm going to do the same thing on the back. Sorry about that. And we're only going to concentrate on this. Whoops. Trying to get it so it lines up with the camera so you can see it easily. This screw, this one, this one, this one, and this one. We're going to ignore this one for now. So we're just going to do one first so that we makes it easier to get the others in. This actually isn't a terrible way to do the to apply the thread lock. Sometimes the bottles of thread lock and glue and whatnot, if they've sat on their sides like that one had, they kind of just, once you open it, they just start just pouring out, even if they're upright. So it's pretty annoying. Obviously, it stops after a little while. But ideally, what you would do is you would just tap it down so that anything, if it's been sat on its side like that, you just tap it down a bit so it gets out of the tip, and see if you can wait a minute before opening it up. Just again, once you've got that middle one in place, put in the rest of the screws for each end. Now normally an RC kit would have nylon thread locking nuts, which are some people call them nylocks or just lock nuts, but whatever you call them, usually the kits will include something like that. But these serrated locking nuts, which you can see quite well there, see how it's got those sort of teeth on the face of the nut. Those have really taken off in popularity in RC lately. You just need about a drop. If it gets around the screw, it's okay. Just want to make sure it. Oops, I actually accidentally put that in the wrong place. That last screw. This one is in the wrong place. It should be there. No biggie. I've only finger tightened these so far. So. And the locking compound, the thread lock compound, is kind of like a sort of a gooey consistency, and once it reaches the air, it starts to sort of harden up, and it makes this really interesting. I mean, it does lock the screws in place, so it does do the job. Make sure you use the wrench on the opposite side to hold that nut, and make sure again you're using the correct size of screwdriver. Okay. So there we are. All right, and for the final stage of this step, we've got the chassis brace, which is here. You can just barely see against the black. And you need to get the screws that were supplied in stage 8, which are this 3x10 M3x10 binding head screw. Again, remember we talked about the binding heads. They're quite kind of a fat head like that. And then this 4x10 binding head screw and 3x10 countersunk screw. Now if you're not sure, there aren't that many screws that are left from previous steps, but if you're not sure and you have a pair of calipers or a metric ruler handy, you can measure the screw just to make sure. So those are the countersunk screws, and it's a little bit more difficult to measure these, but if you just go to the end, see that's your 4x10. So 3.7, but you get the idea. So these are what they look like, and we're just going to attach that in place in the rear. Just put these in loosely, again using the correct screwdriver size. So they're just putting those in sort of for placement at the moment. It's kind of hard to show, no matter how much lighting we've got here. Pretty difficult to show a black screwdriver screwing a black screw into a black surface. So apologies if it's difficult to see that. Okay, so those two, the bottom screws are in. Oops. Right. And that's it. We're done. So there we are. We've got the can starting to get a really good idea of how big this is going to be. It actually, at the moment, is not going to fit on the screen. There we are. You get the idea. So basically, the next few steps are we're going to make all of these, I believe. The next few steps, we're going to make all of this stuff again, starting with the inside of this here, the differential. All of this stuff, front shock tower, front hubs and everything, and then we're going to attach it here. And then we'll have the two ends of the car, and we'll start in the middle. So there we are. That is steps 21 and 22 of the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1 here on RC Racing TV. I'm Frank from RC Racing TV and polepositionrc.com. Please check back for our next video. Thanks for watching, and we hope you have enjoyed it.